This is a quick overview of the Groundskeeper system when you're signing up for the first time. First, you got to put in some of your details and then create an account. You're going to get an email with a verification code, so check your email, maybe the spam box as well, and then put in the verification code over here. Next, you're going to be greeted with this onboarding wizard. You can click through it, put in some of the details that are important. Your logo, which will show up on your estimate and invoices, your email, your business address, your phone, and so on. Next up are your bank details. These will all show up on your invoice. You can skip them for now, but you need to fill them in later. In the finance settings, you can set up your currency, the sales tax for your state, the labor cost per hour, the price you pay per hour, and some of your gross profit margins will show up over here. These are very important because without these, you cannot create estimates. Once done, you could go to the workflow settings. The defaults are pretty good, but some things you might want to do is including the cost of the travel price in your estimates, whether you want to have a qualification step for your estimates or not, and some other details around your scheduling and your operations. Finally, you can set up your first blueprint. I'm going to set up a mowing blueprint. Remember, the name and the description pull through to your estimates and your invoices, so make sure those are appealing to your customers. Then fill in the details about the blueprint. We're doing lawn mowing, so I'm going to choose the lawn area. I'm going to choose a size of 500 square feet, which is going to be the minimum for all the jobs that I do. In other words, if there's a smaller job, it's going to get priced at least 500 square feet. This is going to take about 12 minutes. There's not going to be any dump fees or debris. The materials are irrelevant for lawn mowing. And this section here is if you want customers to use the pre-qualified estimate feature. And that's it. You now have a blueprint. If you upgrade your plan, you can have more blueprints. For now, we're just going to use one blueprint. Next, you need to fill in a property. You can always add a property over here, no matter where you are in the system. Put in the first and last name of the customer, the email, the phone, and the address, and then also set up the property metrics of the property. Remember to also set up the various metrics. I'm only interested in lawn care, so this one has a metric of about 800 square feet of lawn. You can go straight to adding a job, or you can just save this property as a one-off. Here in the job, you can see this is the blueprint we created. You select that one. Is this going to be recurring? Yes, it is. We're going to mow this every week for a whole year, and we'll just go save. So now you've created a job. You can see the picture of the property and the various details about the property. You can go to estimates over here to see the running estimates, or you can go to the property, see the property profile page, and just click here on an estimate. On the estimates page, you can see the jobs in the estimate. You can get a breakdown looking at the labor cost, and if the blueprint also had a dump fee and a material defined, you would see that showing up here as well. You can manually edit the actual cost and the price, although that's really not recommended. You can change the recurring details, how often this job needs to be billed for. You can go into the property and change the property metrics. So maybe you mismeasured the lawn area. We could change this to 8,000 and that would update here. And if this was a difficult property to manage, you could change the difficulty percentage. So we can bump this up. That's going to change the labor price to service that property. You can also see the gross margin, which is really driven by the labor cost and the labor price. So you can change that in the finance settings. Finally, you can add a discount here if you wanted to, and those will all update. Once you're happy with what that looks like, you can move to the next stage, which is the waiting and reviewing stage. Here you can see that the estimates move to the waiting on customer stage. You can look at the preview, which is what the customer will actually see. Here, this is broken image shows that you haven't uploaded your actual logo. So put that in your settings. You can also send an email to your customer and they're going to get a nice email with the estimate. The customer sees this estimate and they can decline it, they can ask for changes, or they can just accept it how it is. If they don't want to do that, you can also mark an estimate as accepted, or you can reject the estimate yourself. Let's mark as approved and move it forward. Here you can see it's in the last column, and what you will find that in the operations view, you now have all these jobs that you've been estimating for. If you want to schedule a job, you can simply drag and drop it to the correct day. The job will automatically take up as much space in the day as it needs to. You can also go and look at all the jobs in a single day. You can drag more in here, although obviously we wouldn't want to do 2 in one day. And you can see a nice weekly overview of all the jobs that you've scheduled. You can also see them in the month view over here. If you want to jump to a specific day, you can use the calendar over here, but I find it's mostly useful to work in a week or day view like this. Once you've scheduled your jobs, you can track them over here. You can see all the jobs that you've scheduled. When you start them, simply drag them to the started one. Alternatively, you can set the stop and the start jobs over here. You can also unschedule your jobs if you need to reset something. Once started, you can complete the job. You put in some details over here. These are all based on the estimate. Assuming everything's fine, the job gets completed and it's now essentially done. Once a job is done, you can move to the invoice section. You can see an invoice is automatically created based on the job, and the job shows up here. If you have more jobs that you do, I'm going to just create an example here quickly. I'm going to move this to started and then completed. This job will also now show up in your invoice. Once in the invoice, you can review all the jobs that you've performed over the last period. The whole view looks very similar to estimates. The difference, however, is these little indicators over here. You will see what you estimated the job for and what the actuals were. These actuals, depending on the actual labor time, the dump fee, and the materials, which aren't showing up here because we don't have those for lawn mowing. You can also change the total cost and the total price, but you really shouldn't need to. You can also add additional jobs that you may have done, and these will just get added to the invoice. And just like in the estimate, you can add a discount over here. We'll put $100. You can see the margins, and once you're done, click reviewing. Again, just like in the estimate, you can send an invoice to the customer. You can preview and double check things. You can see the invoice as the customer will see it, and that's it. That's the whole overview. You will notice some of these numbers going up. On the next tier, you can also see tracking on bookings and finances and so on. But for the moment, the best thing to do is to try this out for yourself. You can go to onlinegroundskeeper.com and get started with a free trial straight away.